Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Hello, good people. We are back celebrating Midnight Mass. Your celebrants today are me, Jesse Jackson. We have Karen.
Hello.
And our master of ceremonies, maybe our main celebrant, Lou. So how you doing, Lou?
Good evening, everyone.
Yes. Yeah, we are. This is our second of a series of episodes discussing the Netflix miniseries Midnight Mass, and Lou's going to take over for us.
All righty. So I'm very curious to see how Jesse and Karen are reacting to this series now that the horror elements are wrapping up, but we didn't really touch upon probably the most significant event that happened near the end of the second episode, and that was the miracle in the church with Leeza. And people are probably listening to those first two episodes and saying, how come you didn't talk about that? And I wanted to leave it for this one because I want to ask both of you, what were your thoughts when that happened and the possible cause of it, and what are you thinking now? Who wants to go first?
Karen, ladies first, as always.
Sure. Well, I'm glad you waited because it was just that kind of planting in the last episode of the first two. And we got to see not only the aftermath between the people on the island, but also the aftermath with Father Paul. So we got to see the whole story of that in these two episodes, how it happened, why it happened. And I think seeing it just reinforced my suspicions of Father Paul in that moment, that there was something else going on, that he was doing something in order to heal her. And I had no idea it was quite as big as it was until that was revealed. But yeah, I thought, well, it's nice, but once he goes away, is it going to go away? Is she going to be paralyzed again? So part of it was I was wondering what the deal was with her in particular, and then the whole what is his deal?
Mm-hmm. Jesse.
So I was surprised. Now, we had established in the first two episodes that she is very devout.
Mm-hmm.
Father Paul said, according to Monsignor, sometimes it just might be you and I at daily mass. So she knew she had a faith, and you could see, you've watched her attending mass and being very focused, that this is like the Zach Guilford Riley is pardoned, but often like me, like daydreaming, counting the piles, I'm here, but I don't know if I'm truly engaged. But Leeza is the character's name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is very engaged. And so to see her be able to walk was really interesting. And because I've seen these two episodes, I don't know if I had this thought or if it's because Riley had that thought, Father Paul knew this was happening. Because he stepped back, right? He made her, and so I can't remember at this point, did I think that, or did I think this because I'd seen the episode?
Mm-hmm.
But it was very shocking, and it was a great way to cliffhang that second episode. Oh my goodness, what's going on with this? We haven't trusted Father Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I felt this was a little weird. So to see this happen, it's a good thing, right? My initial thought is, okay, this is a good thing, but is there another shoe that's going to drop?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my initial thoughts.
Okay. That's a good thought to have. And I'm sure the fourth episode probably reinforced that for you.
Yeah.
But before we get too far into it, I really want to focus right now on Leeza. Because as you mentioned, she's the most devout of anybody on the island. So she's been going to mass every day.
Right, which means she's been taking communion every day.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Which caused her to heal faster than...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's something going on with communion.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that as we get into later episodes. But I'm really interested to hear your reactions because we find out that her paralysis was due to an accidental shooting by another character on the island that is the obligatory town drunk, I guess you could say. But now we now we have context for that, because Joe is obviously feeling a great deal of pain about what happened, and he's tormenting himself, you could say. So when Leeza goes and confronts him in that trailer, how did that scene play out for you guys?
So I thought that was really well done, because the easy thing would have been, because she is so devout, that I forgive you, right? There is forgive those who trespassed against us, right? But I love her. No, I hated you. And I'm paraphrasing, right? But like, no, I don't forgive you. I hate you. You took everything away from me. But now then I've worked through this, and she's quoting Bible verses and everything. And then she's worked through and it wasn't a feeling of forgiveness or redemption. It was, I suppose, because God is teaching me this, I should forgive you, and versus this, hey, I need to move on. I need to forgive you so that I can move forward. It wasn't any of that at all. I thought it was a very complicated discussion and relationship. And one thing about this series, nothing is easy. This is a very complex. I stand by, even though the first 2 episodes I talked about, this is a drama that has a little bit of horror tinge into it. The mix is going from 80% drama to 20% horror to up as we go, but this is really well done
in the drama department.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. How about you,
Karen? I felt like she was forgiving herself for hating him.
Oh, perfect. That is really well done. Yes.
Yeah. So there was resolve for her, and that I hate you. There's nothing I can do about that. So I'm just going to forgive myself for hating you, and you can take that as you want it. And I just felt like that was her methodology. And to be honest, I don't know that I would be that nice. Mm-hmm. I would just hate the guy forever. I would want to see him in prison or get shot himself, or, I would be vindictive. So, I mean, at the very least, she's a better person than me.
Yeah.
But
I just was blown away by her acting ability in this scene. Like it's that, and the actor that played Joe, I mean, his reaction to her forgiving him was heart-wrenching. But this scene encapsulates for me the power of horrific elements being used to explore the human condition. So, and plus it's also a showcase of Mike Flanagan's ability as a writer and director, because it's just so well staged and shot. And when she walks in that trailer, it's like the confrontation between these two people that you wouldn't expect to happen on another show until very late into the story. So for this to happen so soon, it throws you off guard. But at the same time, my goodness, the emotions, the undercurrents that are flowing in that scene are just so palpable. I just think it's a masterful scene, and I haven't been as moved or touched by something like that in quite a while. So I just a highlight. And there's not much more to be said about it, but it does act as it's a nice springboard, because it also is a moment for Joe to start on the road to self-forgiveness, and he starts attending these AA meetings with Riley, which is an interesting thing to see these two guys, both who have hurt other people, talking to Father Paul about the AA thing. And so you've got these layers of these religious practices with the methodology of the AA meeting that are going on in the episode. So the show is really working on conventions and how we perceive them, and how they allow us to do behaviors that under other circumstances we wouldn't normally probably do or approve of. So that's been the DNA of this whole series. So I'm curious about how you guys feel about that.
Well, I want to mention also, well, first of all, we know that it's meeting singular now by the second or by the 4th episode. And the dynamic in that meeting, I felt was very interesting. We have someone firmly on the side of Christianity, someone firmly on the side of atheism, and then Joe in the middle with, well, I used to be really devout and I want to be, but I don't know where I am right now. He's just lost. And then the fact that they're all in the same boat when it comes to hurting people. They've all
Mhm.
directly hurt people, again, as we find out in the 4th episode.
Right.
So I don't know where that's going. I mean, it's only with Father Paul. I hate to say because we haven't talked about that yet, but it'll only be Father Paul that we see moving forward in that storyline. So I want to see where he is in that.
Mm-hmm.
So, that Karen, I did not connect the two, that Joe, through an accident, cost someone their legs. And I always like to say, I know that a lot of people feel like drunk driving is never an accident, but Riley did not purposely kill someone, right?
Yeah,
They
it was
both,
an accident.
Yeah, I mean, it's so you have this two very different people there. And I thought that was a really great dynamic.
And with this commonality that connects them.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I know I said I would hate him. I don't want to say that as a blanket statement because I didn't hate Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I know I would hate him if I was Leeza, but to me, he was a very sympathetic character.
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to put that in as a caveat.
Yeah.
Okay, so how were you feeling about Lisa's parents not wanting to follow up on her miraculous recovery? Frustrated or understandable?
Is in the same vein as what he's been all along. He doesn't want to get into anything deeper than what's on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Wade, is that his name? The mayor of the island?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, like he didn't want to confront what's going on with the cats. He wanted that wrapped up, whatever. And with his daughter also, okay, she can walk now. Story's over. He doesn't want to look any deeper than anything. He wants to be on the surface. He doesn't want any controversy. That's it. Whatever's on the surface, I'm good with that. Bye. So yeah.
He's a very simple man, right? Like unlike Big Jim, as we were talking in our previous, right? Like this, he is mayor because no one else wants the job, right? He's a simple guy. And don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Let sleeping dogs lie, whatever cliche you want to use. My daughter can now walk. And I thought it realistically, the idea of that her mom said we spent a fortune on trying to figure out how to do this. And don't get me wrong, we were glad to do it, but at the same time, do we want to go down that roll again?
Right.
What does it matter? And I don't mind Dr. Sarah's like, don't we want to know why this happened? And we don't care. All we know is our daughter can now walk. It's a blessing from God. Let's move on.
Right.
Okay. What about Hassan and Bev? They're representing two different religions, and this onslaught of miracles has given Bev fuel to be more aggressive, if that's possible. Let's say she's less passive aggressive and more just plain aggressive now.
Could we hate her anymore?
Oh, she is everything that I dislike about organized religion.
Yep.
It truly is. I just cannot. It frustrates me so much, this and her blind faith. To quote Bruce in the 80s said, blind faith in anything and your leaders will get you killed. And she has this blind faith that anything, it's a gift. It's holy. Even we're going to get through a couple of things that happen, right? She just obviously like, nope, everything's good. It's all great here. I'm going to support the pastor and the church. Yeah, I just really, really cannot stand her at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole indoctrination of the children thing.
Yeah.
Man, that really grates. It bites my butt. I mean, I just do not like it at all. I want her to go.
Well, and I thought it was an interesting description, and the police chief, right, Sheriff Hassan, he does such a good job. He goes, no, you are putting words in my mouth. As a Muslim, we recognize that Jesus was a prophet. We have studied the Bible. I do not think, but church and state, It is not something that you should be doing. I remember in high school way back, we did an elective where we did a sort of Bible as literature. It was very clear that we're treating this as stories. And I always I don't want to get too serious, but it's always, well, I don't understand why this bothers you. Well, let's convert it around. If we had given, if we had given the Quran to everyone and started teaching, or if we started asking all your students to have a Muslim prayer or a Jewish prayer before the start of school, you'd be furious. But because this is a quote unquote Christian nation, well, why are you giving it a hard time? Why are you so against this? Yeah, really, really well done. And I love that one of our heroes one of the good guys is shown the Muslim faith very, very positively.
And that he's open-minded, where Bev is not.
Yeah. And
in our country, over the last, 20 years or so, it has not been that way at all.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see him being open-minded, saying that I have no problem with you reading the Bible, studying the Bible. Just realize that it's only one point of view. Yeah. It's not the only point of view. When he talks to his son, I like that he is so open about it. I know you've been having this crisis of faith.
Yeah.
But remember where your backbone is. What has kept us together through your mother passing and all this is the Muslim faith. And while I don't mind you studying other things, I want you to keep in mind that that's our base. So I find that very cool. And again, Raul Coley is brilliant in his argument with Bev, and the actress that plays Bev as well. I wouldn't hate her so much if she wasn't such a good actress.
Oh yeah, exactly. She's brilliant in this. Yes.
Yeah. I also like that the story makes it from Hussein's point of view more personal too, is that his son Ali is being swayed out of curiosity, I think, but some maybe peer pressure, because the whole island is well, not the whole island, but the main religion of the island is Catholic. Yes. So that's a nice touch too as well. So let's turn to our two leads, I would guess you would call them, is Eve and Riley. What are we thinking about them?
Erin and Riley?
Erin, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of a Freudian slip, Eve.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
With the Immaculate Conception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to get too much into Riley because we're not going to be with him much longer. But I really did like him and Erin. I thought that they were really great together, like rekindling this romance and talking about really deep stuff, and also going over, what might have gone wrong, what has happened to us in the time that we were apart. I liked those beats between the two. I think there's not a dud in the group of actors.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that right up front. I think all of them are outstanding actors. Like we talked about with Leeza commanded that space, the trailer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Commanded it. Joe was pushed into a corner, even though it was his space, and she commanded and that takes a lot of acting chops. And again, Erin and Riley together make this bittersweet. It gives you that feeling of, what if I reconnected with someone from my past like that? It really puts you in that mind of that, wow, it's cool that they've reconnected and they're talking about these things, and we see a lot of the dynamics of the island through their eyes. The fact that his family is so devout and they're not forgiving him for all this, and the fact that her mother was just a horrible person, and she was not seen as that horrible person on the island, but to her, wrecked her as a child. So I really loved those scenes with them together.
Yeah, in terms of fandom, a great shipping romance, right? Two very complex characters, both finding themselves, in another world. This is a Hallmark Channel movie happening, right? This small island.
Yeah.
He's returned. She's there.
There's only one bed in the room.
Yeah. There's
They're locked in a closet.
This is so I love them so much. And I don't know, I don't want to jump ahead, but their discussions of what happens after you die was amazing. Both of them. And just so beautiful, and not in accepting, each of them accepting what the other one said. That is truly a beautiful scene. Yeah.
And that to me is again, and it's another hallmark of the whole creative team coming together to create that moment, because those are long scenes, long monologues. I mean, and then you've also got the father, he's got his sermons, which are monologues as well. So you're getting a lot of monologuing, but it's not boring.
It doesn't feel like that.
You're totally engrossed in it, because you like, where is this going? How is this relating to the characters? And there's just the simple beauty of the thoughts that they're sharing about, like you said, that conversation about death and dying. And you know that it has such meaning for, especially in that scene, for Riley, because of what he's been through. So it's pretty amazing how the series does that. I've been holding on to him for the last, because he's the driver of he's the catalyst that's powering all this. What are we thinking about Father Paul and Father Pruitt?
Okay, that came out of left field for me. That was a twist I was not expecting, that he is actually the Monsignor Pruitt, but young. And that goes on to explain what's going on, that he has healed to the point where he's young again because of this angel, I put in air quotes. But and we knew there was something with Father Paul. We find out what was in the chest, I'm assuming was this angel. So we find out a lot about him, his motivations, what's going on. One of the things I want to know is, why did he come back? Did he come back to heal the island? Because he didn't have to come back. He's young again. He could have gone on to do whatever, have a new career and all that, but he comes back to this island that's dying. So it really, I see some of his motivations, and then, like we said on the last podcast we did, it brings up new questions, which makes it complex and interesting.
So the beauty of, first off, I was a little confused about who he was giving his confession to. And I almost thought it might have been Bev, because he seemed so acceptant later. But as someone who converted to Catholicism way back in 82, in almost every Catholic church, there's the Stations of the Cross. And that is they are wooden plaques or metal plaques that are across the church. And they are different points of where Jesus on the way to being crucified. And you'll often, during Lent, they will do Stations of the Cross. And the priest will start at the first one. There'll be readings, and then they'll march to each section of the Station of the Cross. As Father Paul is telling them, they are, I won't say perverted, but they are different versions of that kind of Stations of the Cross, right? There is that style of showing what's happening to him. The back of my mind, I think I suspected that there may be a connection. There might be more than we know. So so here's what I didn't want to get into before we hit recorded is we're watching TV a couple weekends ago, and Linda's like, I don't feel like watching something on the DVR. What's going on? And I said, well, I need to watch this stuff for Lou and Karen and I. Do you want to watch with me? Okay. And so she was in, and we've gone through the first 4 episodes. And she says, as a Catholic, I feel like I shouldn't be watching this, but I am fascinated by it. She goes, this is not something I would normally watch, but I enjoy it. By the way, I tweeted to my brother, I said, have you watched Midnight Mass? And he replied back saying, I never would have watched this show, but I'm so glad I did. You know, he had, so
Did he watch it because of you or because
Yeah,
of?
because I suggested, I
okay.
said, hey, and he texted me back saying, I've now watched it and he says, this is not something I ever would have picked, but I'm really glad you recommended. This was well done.
Okay.
So
his shows fly under the radar, I find.
Yeah,
I mean, The Haunting of Hill House didn't.
yeah.
But the other two, I think, were hidden gems when it
Mhm.
comes to him.
And because it's mandatory, if you do a podcast with me, right, that there is, well, now young faces grow sad and old, and the heart of fire grows cold. We swore blood brothers against the wind. I'm ready to grow young again, is the lyrics from No Surrender. And I thought about that I'm ready to grow young again. And it's subtle the way that we've now, like at first when I saw the whiskey, the little, I'm like, oh, he's putting whiskey in that. But now that we've established that, no, there's something else going on with the communion wine. And you see our characters dancing. Their back doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
And just very subtly, the makeup, they don't quite, there's not as much gray.
Yep.
And now that you see he was redeemed, refreshed, you're like, oh, okay, what's going on in this? And to have the surprise of the angel was like, oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We have to do this, right?
Yeah.
They're doing air quotes for those who.
Right, air quotes. I took from, I think it's obvious, but maybe not, that his confessional was before he did anything on the island.
Yes.
So he didn't know Bev then. And then they show.
Well, he knew her, but he had not met her as the new. Yeah.
Right. So he would never have confessed to her. Now, again, that's in hindsight, but he was just, as far as I know, just trying to forgive himself.
Yes.
For doing what he's doing and talking to himself. And I try to look deeper into his shows, and I feel like maybe he's the old Monsignor talking to the young Father Paul, trying to reconcile those two things. And that's why there isn't someone on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay. So how are you handling, Jesse, you and your wife, how are you handling the horror elements of the series so far? Because so far they've been fairly under the radar, but this one, with each episode, you're starting to get a little bit more and more. Are you starting to get uncomfortable with that aspect, or are you so engaged with the characters that you're willing to?
Yes. I mean, this is right. They've brought me undercover, right?
Brought
you in. Yeah. We've done the bait and switch. Yes. Very well done. And so I'm so engaged with the characters. I'm so engaged with the mystery that I told Linda this. I said, Lou recommended go into this as blind as you can. Don't read any reviews. Don't read any synopsis. If you can, go into this and just experience as it's going so that you will have a fresh perspective. And I do think if someone, and obviously, if you've watched this, you've gone through 4 episodes, like, oh, this is a different kind of vampire story. I would have been going in with a different perspective, but I didn't know that. And I think that serves the story well.
Right.
Yeah, this is almost like you're reading Dracula for the first time. It's a story about characters and drama with horror thrown in, like you said.
Yeah.
And so it's not a slasher movie or just gratuitous violence. It has a place in the story. So I feel like you accept it a little bit more because of that.
Now, I have a couple questions for you, Lou, because I think you've seen this multiple times. Why originally can Father Paul be in the sunlight? And then why does he get sick after that first miracle? And why is he continuing to get weaker? Is it because he's not feeding?
No.
Okay. Is there something that will be discussed later?
Yeah.
Okay,
so I really can't reveal that at this particular moment, but that is a very good question. And when I was watching it, I had the same question as well, because it also goes in with, why are these miracles working in the daylight as well? Right. So that is a good question, and we'll come back to it. But
miracles. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Miracles in air quotes.
Yeah.
Too.
So episode 3 was called Proverbs, which all these little miracles are the Proverbs.
Yeah.
Yes.
But as you mentioned so rightly near the beginning, Jesse, when Lisa was able to walk, you thought this is a good thing, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And in episode 4, Lamentations, that other shoe is starting to drop because we find out right off the bat that Erin has lost her baby.
Yeah, and I thought that you're like, well, wait a minute, why is that? What happened? And then you find out they're saying like there's no sign you're pregnant. And I did do the such. I was not familiar with the Book of Lamentations growing up Baptist. I don't know if that's in the King James Bible. I'm not sure if it is or not, but the Book of Lamentations expressed the humiliation, suffering, despair of Jerusalem and her people following the destruction of the city by the Babylonians in 587 BC. So I'm like, oh, humiliation, suffering, and despair. Obviously, he's good at picking what titles, right? That which books of the Bible this was on. So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, and so sad about her losing the baby. And which goes back to her, she was asleep. She was never awake. This was all a dream to her. And then one day I'm going to meet her was just such a beautiful moment.
I agree. I didn't like how, being someone who has a chronic pain illness.
Yeah.
I'm going to relate it to myself. Sometimes when I go to get pain relief, I have to put a caveat. Look, for a migraine, I'll just take high doses of Benadryl if you don't trust me. Because people don't trust you when you go and you say you're in pain.
Right.
And to see her get lambasted by this doctor on the mainland to say you were never pregnant. Let me put you in touch with our psychologist. You're going crazy. It really hit a note with me. And not only did I feel bad that she lost her baby, but the fact that she has to put up with people telling her she's crazy. Yeah. So it was like a double whammy for her. And my heart hurt for her in that moment that I was never pregnant. Okay, no, that's not the case. I know I was pregnant. And the fact that she was just not only wrecked, but she feels like she'll see her again, and made me cry.
Well, and the whole, by the way, if you haven't watched Dope Sick, absolutely brilliant series about Oxycontin and the pain industry. But I love the whole idea that baby saved her. Right, that she was in this bad marriage and the baby kicked her into overdrive to made her doing something. It is just beautiful. And then you're right, they're just like, okay, let's talk about, let's get you some help. And she's like, no. It was very, very sad. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts then that not only has Erin lost the baby, but when she goes to the mainland to get it for further examination, she's told that she's never been pregnant ever.
Yeah, and that to me it would, and I'm not saying I would be in that situation, but I feel like maybe a part of her would think I'm going crazy. Yeah, maybe it was a hysterical pregnancy, but I also think, no, don't do that. You were pregnant.
Well, and her doctor knew she was pregnant, right? Like that's what confused
the one on the
me.
island, yeah,
is the Annabelle Gesh character, right? Knew she was pregnant and is confused. So that makes me like, I don't understand that. That is a mystery and quote a cliche, right? The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. All of a sudden, on one hand, we have someone that's absolutely a miracle. You can now walk when you couldn't before. But now then the miracle of life appears to have been taken away. That doesn't make any sense. Why is that? What does this mean? What is the reveal we're going to see? I
have my suspicions, and I'm not going to say them now. Okay. But it's something that feeds off of the host. So like a virus or something like that. So that puts me in a mind. Also, she does say, hey, I can have my doctor send you my files if you don't believe me. And the doctor's like, no, I don't need that. Yeah. So I felt really bad about that whole storyline, although she is very philosophical about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has a pretty amazing discussion with Riley again.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So Father Paul, Jesse was asking why he doesn't seem to be affected by the sunlight.
Yeah.
And we saw that with Erin's blood sample, that when it got in the sunlight, it caught fire as well.
Yeah.
So there's a clue there as to why the father is still able to go out, at least for a while, out into the sunlight. And that comes to head with his meeting with Joe. And what did you think of that?
Meeting with Joe.
So he's hugging him, and all of a sudden he won't let him go. And Joe's like, hey, dude, hey, back off,
Yeah.
Little too. And all of a sudden, because we've already seen a lot of strange things where we're like, it looks like he passes out, and then he comes back, and now then he feeds, and which led to interesting discussion, right? Linda's going, well, what are the rules? And I go, well, it depends on the story, right? Like, as far as we know, there are no real vampires. So therefore, it's whatever the story wants to do. And in some universes, you certainly, a vampire could just take a nip, take it and keep the person alive. Others, they are monsters and they can't. It's like they drain a body the same way you would drain a can of Coke when you're really parched. And so, and she's like, okay, I'll just keep watching that. And I said, I think we're going to have to figure it out. Very, very sad that Joe was just trying to get better.
Yeah.
And
then this happens to him. It was just horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the look on his face when it's happening, he's just incredulous.
Yeah.
About it. And the fact that he sees Father Paul. First of all, he saw Father Paul as benevolent. You're going to help me through my crisis.
Yeah.
In the AA meetings. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, you're killing me.
Yeah.
And you're licking my blood while I'm dying. I mean, I wanted that Joe to survive, but I knew he wasn't going to. Knew while he's sitting there drinking his blood that he wasn't going to.
Yeah.
And then the aftermath of that was also very interesting with Bev and the handyman. It's interesting how much devout people forgive.
Yes.
How much will they forgive?
Yeah. And this is where, this was going to be my next question out to you, actually, because with Bev, she's totally committed to this. She's fanatical, basically. Why is not clear, but she's totally into this, and she's willing to cover up any sort of indiscretion. And obviously the parallels to that to today are plentiful. So we see it almost happening on a daily basis these days. So I found that very interesting. But she's cognizant of what she's doing, even because she's very intelligent. But then she starts to pull in the more gullible, naive type of people, like the handyman gets pulled into this as well. So this conspiracy is starting to, the scope of it is starting to widen as well. So I thought that was very well illustrated how conspiracies start.
Yeah, she's a very fast talker when it comes to the handyman.
And this whole, and also like, as much as he's done for your family, you do wonder if our priest just killed somebody, right? Hold the phone, people. But no, she just is, it doesn't matter. And I will get serious for a moment, right? I have had people that I know that someone involved in the Catholic Church acted inappropriate. I will not get any broader specifics. And yet they still had a hard time not defending the church instead of their family because the ties are so deep. And versus as Linda said, this happens to me, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is it.
I'm on the next boat off the island.
Yeah. But she's like, no. Yeah. So very, very, very odd.
Her devotion, Bev's devotion to her religion, she's waited for some miraculous to happen in her life. And the fact that these early miracles seem to be benevolent and beneficial, I think that's just driven her she's grabbed onto that, and she's going to ride that for as long as she can. So these other things that she's seeing, she's able to rationalize them through text in the Bible, and you'll see that in further episodes as well.
And it doesn't hurt that she didn't like Joe or his dog.
Yeah.
I think that helped a little bit with her.
Yeah. And also, I think, right, that there is that, I think I'm going to get the scripture wrong, right? But I remember something like even the devil can quote scripture, right? That they can use that. You can use everything in the Bible. And if we have devout people, I'm so sorry, hang with us, right? But it is that there is that if you are not careful, this can be used in a improper way. You can twist things to support things that shouldn't happen.
Right. Yeah, you can twist the Bible in a lot of cases to suit your purposes.
And I think this is a perfect example of she's doing that. She is very she's very aware of scripture. She's learned a lot of Bible verses, and she is twisting them around to use them to set her own purpose.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So now we're set up for the finale of this episode, and it's interesting for Riley, who has in a way bonded with Joe because he had talked to Joe, and Joe had confessed to him that he also felt guilty that his sister had died on the mainland and he had not gone to see her before she had passed. So when he goes to the next meeting and Joe's not there, he's pretty disappointed because it felt like a not just a breakthrough moment for Joe, but for him as well. Because if Joe can do this, then maybe I can do this. And when Joe's not there, obviously his mind is going to, oh no, he's fallen off the wagon and whatnot.
Right.
But when he tells Father Paul this, Father Paul, says that, where's Joe? And Father Paul lies and says he's gone to the mainland to see his sister. So that sets up this crisis of shaky faith for Riley. And then he goes back to confront Father Paul about this. And then we have the psycho moment of the series.
Yes. Yeah. And I get why Riley went back. Like, this is just bothering me. Wait a minute. What's going on there? Because he hasn't been trusting Father Paul anyway. He's been, I'm not sure if this is everything. He has no faith. He's very clear. He's become an atheist. He isn't doing communion, which it feels like is going to end up being really important down the road based on what we're seeing so far. And then just to be at the wrong pace at the wrong time. And I'm like, damn it. Because Riley's my hero. He is my connection to the story. He is who I know there's always a lot of death and horror, but like, this is the guy he's my hero. I want him to go out and have a wonderful life later. And it just, I was very sad to see that.
Same. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it at all.
No, not at all.
Although I do know that Mike Flanagan kills people that you are invested in.
Oh, is he like Josh Whedon and George
a little
Martin?
bit, not to those lengths.
Okay.
But I'm not shocked in an overall sense, but I was shocked that Riley went out so early. I mean, in the 4th episode, and I realize it's a short, limited run series, but still, that's pretty early. And I knew the minute Paul said to him, he's visiting his sister, oh, this cannot be good. This is not good, because now Riley knows. And the person that knows is always vulnerable.
Yes.
So I thought, well, down the road, he's going to say something and people aren't going to believe him. And then I went, oh no.
Yeah.
He went back. Don't go in the room. And I was gutted.
Yeah.
Really.
Yes.
Although, how are they going to cover up 2 people dying now? So this is going to ramp up the drama in the storyline, because now a sympathetic character is gone. What's Bev going to do now?
Right.
Yeah. And I do wonder that, like, this is a small island. People are going to notice if someone, we're keep killing off characters. So I don't know what they're going to do with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're asking the right questions, as we like to say.
Okay. Good.
Good.
Okay, yay.
And as Karen said, things will ramp up. So
yes,
we're already past the half point of the series because there's only 7 episodes. So things will definitely ramp up. And I'm really going to be curious coming back after the next 2 for Jesse and his aversion to horror. how he's going to be taking those episodes, but it sounds like you've got enough investment in the characters that
I do.
Will
and
be able to ride that portion side of the series out.
And boy, another great scene with Neil Diamond music.
Mhm.
The music in this is beautiful.
Yeah, it's
You know,
ironic and great, and I feel like it fits with the tone, even if it's ironic.
Yeah.
You know, like this really upbeat music. It's something horrible is going on.
Holy. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
just so much beautiful. A lot of Catholic music and that you would hear during Mass. It's just very, very cool.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the hymns. So I find
Yeah.
myself singing along with the hymns in the church sometimes.
Well, and Linda said the same thing. She's like, "This is really beautiful." Just,
and I gotta say that our church didn't sound as good.
No, not at all.
Yes, those Islanders are good singers.
Can we, before we end, can we talk about the angel?
Sure.
And who we might want to survive at the end? Were my two questions I want to get in.
Okay.
First of all, the angel is my interpretation in my head of Nosferatu. I mean, that's what I see when I hear Nosferatu. So, and my husband said, "Is this a Dracula story?" And I said, "Well, it might be a vampire story, but I don't think it's a Dracula story." And he's like, yeah, you know what I meant. So I found that amusing.
I did found it a very cool imagery that it has wings like an angel, right? Like that, that it was, and from that perception, right? And so much of the Catholic faith is around Mass and the communion, right? Like I grew up Baptist where we had grape juice and crackers, right? And when I converted, they made it very clear that communion is that when the priest converts the wine, that it becomes the body and blood of Christ.
Right.
You know,
it's not a metaphor.
It is not a metaphor.
Right.
It is the body and blood of Christ. And so to have this spoken that way is a very unique take on the vampire mythology, mixing it with Catholicism. So, and by having our monster look like an angel is very, very something that you go, duh, why hadn't I thought of that before? And it's really, really well done.
Right. And so that puts a couple of things in perspective. That's what was flying over on the other island.
Yes.
I mean, I can only assume.
Yeah.
He is also feeding while he's there, but he's not helping the Monsignor like he was before. He took the opportunity. Now I'm out. You've gotten me out. I'm going to feed. I don't care about you anymore. But he does. Comes at the end and helps. I think that's a begrudging thing in his case. I'm here for myself. Yeah, okay, I'll help you.
Right.
Yeah, and you wonder, because our current Father Paul is still, to a certain degree, human. I mean, he's speaking. He has his moral center. He seems to be, short of killing Joe, up at this point, he seems to be a good man that is using this like, oh, I have a gift now and I'm going to use this. Now, I certainly think that he could be corrupted, and we're going to see what that happens. But yeah, absolutely.
Right. I think what's really interesting about this series, and you guys are hitting up on it, which is good, is that there's this parallel lines between paths of the conventional Catholic rituals and processes and the lore of vampires that are running in parallel. And a lot of it has to do with communion. And I think the answers to a lot of the questions that you're asking about why do not the rules of vampires seem to be applying the way they normally do in other movies is because of this parallel between the communion, which is the blood of life, and how these people are ingesting the vampire blood, if you want. So there's two parallel paths going there, and that they're being weave together. And so that's creating this third or new mythology, or that you might want to keep that in your mind as you're trying to figure out, why is this happening this way and not the way I would expect in a typical vampire movie. So I think that's something to keep an eye on, especially in these next 2 episodes. And Jesse, your comments about Father Paul having his come to Jesus moment, I guess you could say, that will be addressed.
Well, and I love the fact
there are more surprises still to come.
Yeah, I often will mention when I'm doing set listing Bruce, I will use your road to Damascus moment. That when someone discovers, not necessarily, because I talk to other people besides Bruce Springsteen fans, I will talk to people about passionate music, they're passionate about other bands, and we'll talk about that buying Born in the USA or hearing Born to Run or seeing him live was their road to Damascus moment, where and so to have him share that story about Paul, Saul becoming Paul, and doing that, I thought was really, really well done.
Yeah. All right. That's everything I had.
So now Karen had the question, who do we want to live?
Well, it would have been Riley on the top of my list.
Yes,
But I think right now, the kids, because I hate to see kids die. I know that is not going to come to fruition, though. Some of them are going to be gone. I have a feeling. And Erin and Hassan would be the top of my list. So that's who I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I really, really had hoped that Erin and Riley would have a happy get to ship and go off to being together. So I don't know how is that going to work. I absolutely adore Dr. Gunning Sarah, so I'm pulling for her. I do not. There are people that are. I won't say I'm cheering for Bev to die.
I am,
but it's not going to make
come out and say
it. That if she doesn't do. So yeah, I would think Erin, the sheriff. And yeah, a couple of the kids, I am hoping that they get through this. Yeah, it is. But, we lost our hero.
Although
and it
you
just
could think of Hassan as a hero in the story as well.
Yes, you could. Yeah. But it's always interesting when you have that, when you lose your lead right early. You're like, oh, man, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
So,
I Sean Bean always dies early, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And I think with Flanagan, though I've never heard him say this directly, but I do think that he is obviously a big horror buff. So I'm sure he was just dying to create his own psycho type of scenario, right?
Sure.
So
yeah,
I definitely think that's there. And I think it's been established in this series that it has a very moral universe, so that if you've committed a sin, you can expect some sort of penance, and that you'll see that continue throughout the rest of the series. And so that's, again, and there's that frisson that's going on between you're attracted to certain aspects of the story, because obviously to see a girl walk again and to see the parents of Riley getting younger and whatnot, this is all great, but there's no such thing as a free lunch, and you're also a little repulsed or concerned or uneasy about what's going on, because there's got to be something at the bottom of the pit that's not quite right. So that will play out, and I'm can't wait to talk to you guys again after you see the next 2 episodes.
And we've seen the 2 biggest sinners on the island. They're the first 2 to go, right?
Yeah.
They've committed direct sins against people.
Well, and there was a minor player, the drug dealer.
Right.
Yes. So, but again, that's a different type of sin as well. So he's out of the picture, and it's an interesting microcosm of society, placing this whole story on this little island like this. It's quite interesting, and other aspects of society that haven't come into play yet will at some point just at least be briefly referenced, and it just gives it a complete, a more deeper contextual footings that makes it even more relevant. So
he's the master of self-contained locations. Bly House, Hill House, and now the island, that people are stuck in this location and
Mhm.
there it ramps up the tension. It really puts this feeling of being stuck in your head while you're
Absolutely.
watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's really good at that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
Yeah.
that's everything I had. Is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up?
No, once again, I'm just really glad you suggested us watch this.
Mhm.
It has been very interesting and very well done. I look forward to watching the next 2 episodes and seeing what happened.
Mhm.
And we're not going to be able to watch the finale after we watch
Exactly.
the next 2. It's going to kill
Right.
me.
Yes. What is, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
At Elveri on Twitter, and you can find all my other places by clicking the link in my bio.
And Lou, how about yourself?
YouTube, Lou's Reviews, and on Twitter at the Stephen King Podcast or Lou W. Sytsma, Sytsma.
And you can send us an email for the podcast at jklb5podcast@gmail.com. That's where we're going to get all our information. I may end up changing that away from the B5, but for now, that's what it is.
Mhm.
I am at Jesse Jackson, DFW. Please do check out this feed as we're going through all the Babylon 5 episodes, 1 episode at a time. You can check me out when I talk Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere, and my Bruce Springsteen podcast, Set Lusting Bruce. But for now, Karen, Lou, the podcast is ended. Let us go in peace to be kind to one another.
That's right. And look forward to the next podcast, which will cover book 5, Gospel, and book 6, Acts of the Apostles. So there you go.
Ooh, nice.
All right. Take care, everyone. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified